Hey there people, how you doing? So, today we have the video comparison between the Galaxy S20 Plus and iPhone 12. Now, I would say that the video recording on the S20 Plus is very good, but compared to an iPhone, I have to say it's gonna be an interesting comparison because to date, I don't think there's any Android smartphone out there that can absolutely beat the iPhone 12 in terms of overall video quality. But let's see how the S20 Plus fares. Alright, now selfie video on the S20, and we also have the iPhone 12 as you'd expect. And well, we have 4K up to 60 frames per second on both of them, which is just nothing short of fantastic, because at that resolution, the details are just phenomenal, you know. I'm really interested in seeing exactly how well it fares. Yeah, it seems like the iPhone is blowing out a little. Maybe it's just a viewfinder, but we'll see later on. God, it is hot out here, damn. Alright, this is 4K 60 on both of them, and both of them can do it, so it's, you know, a good thing. At least we have the options here. And yeah, this is the audio quality test, as you can hear, and I'll let you guys know how both of them sound and look soon enough. Now, in terms of 4K selfie video, 4K 30, I have to say the iPhone does look better. It is blowing out some highlights, but the S20 Plus, it looks way too faded with a lot of lens flare. It doesn't look as nice. The iPhone is looking a little bit more detailed, and the audio quality, I have to say, I think I prefer the iPhone because of its slight bit of extra clarity that I can hear. The S20 Plus is great, it is impressive, but the iPhone does sound just a tad bit better. 4K 60, however, is without question better on the S20 Plus because you can see the dynamic range that we can get, the highlights being under control and the shadows being well lit. I think the iPhone 12 is capable of better dynamic range in 4K 60, but it just seems like that's not the case yet, at least. Now here we have 4K 30 with the rear cameras, and well, the stabilization is being tested to its limits because the road that I'm walking on, it is basically the place you go to just twist your ankles for good. And we can see just a tad bit more jitters on the iPhone as compared to the S20. But in terms of the colors and all that, it is very similar, just a bit more contrast on the S20. It's just such a minimal difference. But I have to say, the details on the iPhone 12 are something to behold, to be honest, because I'm not sure if you guys can see it as well as I do because of YouTube compression and all that, but clearly the details and the overall video quality in 4K 30 from the iPhone is looking a lot better in my opinion as compared to the S20 Plus. Now we have ultra-wide 4K 30, and overall I would say that both look just incredible. The iPhone once again a little bit more detailed, but not such a huge difference as before. But the S20 Plus does have much better shadow detail, which is actually impressing me a bit more. So for the ultra-wide 4K video, I'm gonna side with the S20 Plus here. Now we can of course zoom in up to 3 times on the S20 Plus, and it is in some way digital, but the fact of the matter is we have a 64 megapixel camera that is being used to crop in. Now the iPhone can do zooming in as well, but it's going to be completely digital. I'll show you another sample later on and you'll see that the quality is not that great. Now for 4K 60, well, there are very obvious differences here. First and foremost, the S20 Plus is not as stable as the iPhone. But on the other hand, the S20 Plus does have better dynamic range. It's not a massive difference between the two, but it is a difference nonetheless. Also, the details between the two are very similar, and it might be over-sharpening to an extent, but I do think that the overall crispiness of the details is just a tad bit better in 4K 60 on the S20 Plus, which is kinda odd, but I do believe that if Apple optimizes and just gives us better dynamic range on the iPhone, it would easily come out on top. And now we have super steady mode on the S20 Plus. We do not have anything as such on the iPhone, but well, there are sacrifices here because as you can see, the stabilization on the S20 Plus is much better as compared to the iPhone, because I'm walking dangerously fast on this ankle twisting road, but the S20 Plus, it just feels incredibly smooth and stable. The iPhone not so much, but the iPhone is a lot more detailed as compared to the S20 Plus because the quality in super steady mode is just not that great. So basically, if you want stabilization and that is it, you do not care about quality or anything like that, then the S20 Plus does have a very good super steady mode. Now let's go indoors, and these are fairly harsh conditions. We have a very bright highlight coming in from the right and much darker shadows on the left. And it seems like both are handling this like absolute beasts, because almost neither of them are blowing out highlights tremendously, neither are they crushing the shadows. The only real difference between the two is the extra bit of vibrance the S20 Plus has, and I gotta say, I kinda like it because you can see the blue in the background, it looks very nice and saturated, while the iPhone is not looking that nice. It looks kind of faded, and it's not my preference basically. Now, the details, once again, I do think they are just a tad bit better on the iPhone. It's not a massive difference in these instances, but I do think the details are overall gonna be better on the iPhone. Now, if we move on to 8K video on the S20 Plus, we will obviously lose out on stabilization, but we will gain a lot of detail, obviously, and once again lose out on dynamic range. These are the sacrifices we have to make when shooting 8K, so the ideal conditions would be an evenly lit environment with basically a tripod. Those are the conditions you want to shoot 8K, and you will get tremendous results with the S20 Plus. Now, the problem with focusing still exists because the 64 megapixel camera is just not that great when it comes to 8K, but I have to say, that issue has been basically solved on the Note 20 Ultra. Now let's move on to Ultrawide on both of these phones, and surprisingly, once again, the S20 Plus has better shadow detail. Now in this case, I wanna say I prefer the iPhone because the extra contrast is making Valentine look a little bit less faded, but we have to say, the shadow detail on the S20 Plus does technically look just a little bit better. Now we can obviously zoom up to 3 times on both of them. The quality of zooming in up to 3 times on the S20 Plus is much better, as you can see. The iPhone is not bad standalone, but compared to the S20, it is definitely not as good. Alright, now we have night mode time-lapse on both of these, and this is actually a new feature on the iPhones. The S20 has already had it from a while now, but overall I have to say both of these look just tremendously good. The details are sharp, the noise levels are just non-existent basically, and it looks awesome on both. Both have just tremendously good night mode time-lapses if that is what you're looking for. Now what about HDR? Obviously I cannot show you both HDR 10 Plus and Dolby Vision in the same clip, that's not possible, but when converted to SDR on their respective devices, basically the only real difference between the two is that the iPhone is brighter, hence more blown out highlights but slightly more exposed shadows. The S20 Plus, I personally feel it has a better balance, at least in this situation, but the details are better on the iPhone. So I have to say, if you look at either of these clips in their respective displays, in their respective HDR modes, they look at least like a 10 times better than what they look now. So guaranteed, you will have a better experience with HDR if you have a compatible display. Now, for some low light video, and over here, I have to say I expected the iPhone to perform a little bit better because, well, it wasn't tremendously low light, but even so, the noise levels on the iPhone, it's pretty noticeable. I don't know how much you guys will be able to see after YouTube compression, but without question, I do like how clean the S20's video looks. It does have a little bit more crushed shadows, but even so, it gives a much cleaner video. Colors, however, neither of them get it right because the iPhone is a bit too warm and the S20 is a bit too cold, because I know for a fact that the color of the table especially is right in between the two. Like, I would say that the conditions are harsh, so that much is forgivable given that it's a smartphone camera, but still, overall I do prefer how the S20 looks. Now finally we have slow motion, and well, basically both are amazing. Both have 1080p up to 240Hz, and that is the mode I would recommend using. The S20 can do super slow-mo, but it's horrible to look at, so I don't even care about that, to be honest. But yeah, I have to say, the details, like the very edges of the glass and all that, are considerably sharper and they just look more clarified on the iPhone. While the S20, not bad, but clearly the extra bit of power and quality of the iPhone is very much visible here. But overall, even so, I have to say both look just tremendously good. Both have very good noise reduction, and there is a little bit of flicker, but even so, it's just a tremendously good quality slow motion that you can get out of both of them. So that's a wrap for this comparison, and well, I gotta say, it was tremendously close. I personally do believe that the iPhone is better than the S20 Plus when it comes to video recording. The S20 Plus has its own pros, as in versatility. It can do much better 3 times zoom as compared to the iPhone, and it does have overall better dynamic range when it comes to 4K 60. In 4K 30, however, I prefer the iPhone. And in slow motion, once again, the overall differences are minimal, but when compared side by side, the iPhone does come out on top. Even if it's just by a sliver of hair, it's still on top. The differences are very minimal now, given that both of them are so tremendously good in terms of video recording. But I gotta say, it's nice to see that the video quality of Android phones are improving so much that they are coming close to the iPhones. They haven't equalized or surpassed it yet. That's really not the case. I don't think it's gonna be for the foreseeable future yet, but it's nice progress, to say the least. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be seeing you guys later. Cheers.